Hi, I'm Jason Noffsinger from the College of Veterinary Medicine. Um, and I am here to talk about Plone. Plone is an open source content management system like Drupal and Joomla and WordPress. So it's free. There's no license to use the software. There's just money that you would need to spend on people hours, hardware, things like that. And the source code is available to be customized if you need to. One of the ways that Plone is different from Drupal, Joomla, and WordPress is that it's not a PHP MySQL system. Plone is primarily written in Python. Plone is built on top of the Zope open source web application server. Plone uses the ZODB, which is a Zope objects database. So it's an object-oriented database and not a relational database like MySQL, although you can connect to relational databases if you need to. Plone is platform neutral. So you can run it on a Mac, you can run it on Linux, and we actually run ours on Windows because most of our custom applications are .NET, so we can run them on the same servers as Windows Server as we do all our other applications. And then with that, I'm going to skip on that. So, Mike kind of had an excellent talk about sort of what a CMS is. So this is basically a Plone 4 site. If you went to the plone.org and downloaded it and installed it on your machine, it would look pretty much like this. And sort of the main goal with the CMS is to sort of break up the log jam of only having one or a small team of people who have the ability to update a website. Caps locks. So I just want to sort of show you, the basic stuff. With a Plone site, you can, add sort of standard. These are the standard content types. The main sort of structural content type is the folder. You add a folder. And folders are what you would use to organize your site. So if you want to have a new section, you create a folder. You can create subfolders, things like that. When you create a folder, it's set as private. I'll get into workflow and things like that later. And then the other main content type is just a page. So you can create a page. The default sort of editor for a Plone site with a Plone 4 site is TinyMCE. There are other ones like the CK editor is available, Kupu is available. You have sort of the standard features when you install a Plone site, bold, italic. You can align left, right, center. You can do lists, numbered or unordered. There's other options that you can use, superscript, subscript that you can turn on in the control panel. One of my favorites is the word paste, so that when you copy and paste stuff from Word, it removes all the Microsoft formatting and stuff like that. There are CSS styles that you can add, that you can apply using the drop-down menu. The default ones are things like headings, subheadings, literals, pull quotes. So I just changed that to a heading. You can create links pretty easily. You just click on the link icon. If you want to link to something that's on the site, you just click on the little circle next to it. If you want to And that way, if it gets moved, it'll automatically be updated, so you don't have to go around looking for broken links. If you want to link something externally, you can just type in the URL or copy and paste it in, and you can preview it to make sure it works, and you hit insert. You can insert images. You have pretty standard options. You can do the alignment, the inline, which you need to break up the text before and after. The left will put it on the left, wrap the text around on the right. Right will do the opposite. A nice feature is the dimensions. So say someone goes and they upload a 1 megabyte file to your Plone site. You don't probably need an image that big. It'll probably be way bigger than the width of your web page. It'll also take longer for people who are viewing the page to download it. So you can set restrict sizes so they can't upload really large images if you want to, but if somebody does and you don't have it set restricted, you can pick one of these, and it'll take whatever the pixels are for the image, say it's 25,000 pixels, and it'll then take that size and shrink it down to say 700 pixels, and it'll take the other side and shrink down whatever the correct proportion is for that, and then it'll create an image, and when you insert it on your page, that'll be the size of the image that people will download when they view it, not the 1 megabyte file. So it's probably closer to like 50 kilobytes or something. There's other options. You can add tags to pages that you can use with searches, things like that. There are dates, like Mike was talking about. You can set something so that it goes live on a certain date, or it expires on a certain date. And then there's other options like table of contents. You can exclude it from the navigation so that people who it won't necessarily, like, say, show up here on the menu, but it'll show up other places. And that's sort of just the basics on how people edit Plone sites. Plone has pretty good usability and accessibility. It is it's pretty much AA. It meets the AA standards from the WCAG. Some of that stuff's a little bit subjective, I guess it says here. It's XHTML and CSS compliant. You have pretty standard stuff like you can change the text size. You have access keys. There are skip links. It does nice things like when you upload an image to the website, you put a title in, and when you insert the title, an image into a page, that title automatically is added as the alt tag. So if you can train people to add sensible titles when they upload images, you'll have sensible alt tags automatically added. Of course, getting people to do that is the hard part. Other things like it kind of degrades pretty gracefully, even if you don't have. So say someone doesn't have JavaScript, or they can't use, or they don't have CSS, the styles aren't working or something. You can still technically go through and use your Plone site, and you still have the same options that you do normally. Plone has a good security track record. You can integrate it with other authentication systems like Novell, Active Directory, OpenID. You can create groups, to group people together and give them access to edit the site. And you can do security pretty granularly with Plone. You can set security by a page. You can give people rights to access to edit a single page, to edit a folder, to edit. You can even do things like set a field so that people who are not authenticated can't see it, and people who are can see it. And Plone has a really good workflow engine so that you can set custom workflows. You can have one group that can automatically publish something straight to the website, or another group that needs to be reviewed by one or more people before it gets published. So that's really nice. Plone has a really good community. There's 340 core developers for Plone. There's over 300 solution providers in over 57 countries. And with an open source system like Plone, where there isn't a company with a help desk that you have to call, it's really important to have people that you can like ask questions when something doesn't work. So what's nice with Plone, there's a really active IRC chat room, and there's an active mailing list, and there's a lot of different ways you can get people, you can get your questions answered. And by solutions providers, there's also a lot of consultants who work on Plone, and they use it to build websites for various companies and things like that. So, if you really get stuck, you could probably hire them to help you out. And then one of the other important things with the community is the Plone Foundation. The Plone Foundation is a non-charitable organization. It's a non-profit charitable organization. I know I missed something there. So they own all the intellectual property and the copyrights. There isn't one person or a corporation that could be bought out. The Plone Foundation is controlled by the board, which is voted on by the Plone Foundation members, who are Plone developers. And then Plone is available in more than 40 languages. What that means is the Plone interface here, if you say changed it to a different language, like Spanish, all of these things would be changed. Your content isn't going to be changed automatically, but there's an add-on that can help you manage setting up different translations for all your content types. There are lots of add-on products for Plone. You've got most of what you would need to build a website here, but if you want to do a forum, Plone isn't the best software to do a blog. Most Plone people will tell you to use WordPress if that's what you are trying to do. But if you have a website and you just want to add a blog, you can do that. There is software to do that. There's Facebook and Twitter integration, and there's image sliders and all kinds of themes and things like that you can download and apply to your site. We had talked about theming a little bit. With a Plone site, there's some things I can't really show since this is on my computer, but probably the most basic way to theme your site is just using CSS. So in this case, I'm going to go pretty fast, but you don't really need to know this. There's lots of documentation on how to do things like this. So I sort of set up a custom tiny style sheet that just changes, changes the width of the site. It'll change the background color. It'll change the logo and the color for the links. And when I hit save, it's sort of an MSU-ish looking site. Obviously, doesn't fit the branding or anything like that. The really cool thing with Plone is this is sort of the way you would do it to style a site. You would normally save that to the file system, so it wouldn't be stuck in your database, particularly if you do changes to templates and things like that. If you try to upgrade later, it could cause problems. So it's always recommended that you separate it out and actually save it to the file system. And there's lots of documentation on that. But with Plone 5, the future of Plone, you can actually do this with Plone 4 sites now, but it's going to be the default way to theme things in Plone 5. And with that, you can take any sort of HTML, CSS template, and then you can use CSS selectors and an XML file and basically apply that to your Plone site. And so you can have a designer who doesn't know anything about Plone sort of set it up for you. And you just plug in the pieces from your Plone site to there. That's called XDV, but they're changing the name to Diazo. And that's sort of going to be the default way to theme a site in the future. Who uses Plone? There's lots of universities: Arizona State, Penn State, Northwestern, UCLA. They all have a whole bunch of Plone sites. Penn State has a really good webline project, and they have their website, their wiki, has a whole lot of information on Plone sites. In fact, that's where most of the information I have here. They have a much larger list of universities that are using Plone sites here. Open courseware sites, the connections, MIT's open courseware site, EduCommons, Utah State, Notre Dame, those are all built on Plone. Government sites, NASA, CIA, FBI.gov. The Brazilian government's a good example of a Plone site where they actually have translations here, and the default site's in Portuguese. They have English and Spanish translations as well. And then there's even little city sites, Newport News, West Virginia. Corporations, Discover Magazine's a Plone site. Lots of nonprofits, Oxfam, the Free Software Foundation, is a Plone site. So there's a wide variety of people using Plone for different purposes.